Cork's 96 FM.
We are inundated with people complaining about the delays in getting their passport. The randomness of it all. The fact that some people can get a passport back in 2 days and other people are still wondering 3 months later what's going on. What paperwork do they want? Why haven't I got the passport when everything was in order? And I was sitting here the other day talking to Pat Dawson of the Travel Agents Association. Pat was recommending that anybody whose passport might be about to expire this spring or this summer should go about renewing it now, because there's all sorts of crazy delays in the system. Officially, Passport Office says allow 8 to 10 weeks for a paper-based passport. Online, you can have it in a few working days, but it's just gone crazy. And the travel industry is up in arms about it. Joined by Eoghan Corry of Air and Travel magazine. Eoghan, the industry up in arms about it, because come the summertime you could have thousands of people without valid passports who've got holidays booked. Good morning.
Yes, indeed. Good morning to you. It is a nightmare. You know the scene in Home Alone where they count the children on the way to the airport. It's a case of counting the children's passports, taking them all out and finding somebody's expired. There's a couple of things that are going to help us a little bit. I'll go into that. First of all, there used to be a 3-year expiry on a child's passport. That's been up to 5 years. The second thing, and it's more related to what you said there, that the paper-based application, and paper-based applications really are new passport applications. They, anything relating, for instance, to a newborn child, very, very important you move early on that. And one of the things they've done to help that is that in the support documentation you need for your new baby, it used to involve sending in the parents' passports as the support documentation. They're now accepting photocopies. One of the problems that was arising before Christmas was that the child's passport would arrive back and the support documentation, which included the parents' documentation, was a little bit of delay on that. So you ended up with this nightmare scenario where your new passport had arrived and the existing passport wasn't in your hand. But there's a whole complex range of problems there. And the Passport Office have been hiring. They've hired 300 extra people to try and get through this. Pat Dawson, very sound advice, very sound Cork man who gives very, very good advice on travel. Absolutely move early, jump early, don't wait till close to the event. Check the passports now. Most people, the adult passports are easier to manage than the child passports. Check every family member.
Yeah, like supposing my passport is due to expire in July and I want to go on holidays in July, like, they don't mind receiving an application now, do they?
No, not at all. And you know, the way it used to work was January and February were very low months for passport applications, and then madness would happen June, July, and you could almost track it from year to year. You know, when there was a big event like the Euros in France or the Poland-Ukraine Euros, there would be a plethora of guys who really don't travel that much, who'd all decide, you know, with 2 weeks to go, that they needed a passport. So you get these little spikes that related to major sporting events and things like that. Now, the COVID spike is a very interesting one, because a lot of people haven't travelled for 23 months. So they're just beginning to look, they just let passports go. So instead of having a group of January passports out of date and then a group of February, we now have 23 accumulated months of them, and a lot of people running back to get them all. You could end up with a situation. It's COVID. There are COVID spikes all over the place, by the way. There are COVID spikes in the weddings business and things like that, you know, where you've got a year's supply all being demanded in a very short period of time. And that's what the Passport Office are dealing with.
The travel industry, Eoghan, like aviation, spoke up about the whole unfairness of the COVID situation, and they made their case very loudly. How long is it before the travel industry starts turning on the Department of Foreign Affairs and says, get your act together, lads?
They have been doing that. They had a meeting, the Irish Travel Agents Association, with Pat Dawson, the CEO, had a meeting 2 weeks ago. They're talking about getting things like offices open because the face-to-face contact is more or less gone, as it is in most aspects of our lives, from the passport business. About several years now since they stopped people going into the office to make the application. Face-to-face, online works when all your papers in order and the system is operating smoothly.
Yeah.
When it stops operating smoothly, face-to-face is good. But there is very little facility, and there's no way of the passport office turning on the tap quickly to get face-to-face applications and people coming in with their passports.
And they're charging for it too.
Sorry?
And they're charging for the appointment.
And they charge it, but there is an emergency system. It's basically 3 days to go. You find somebody, the child's passport is out of date. You go in and you get it, but it wasn't built for COVID.
Yeah. Like, I know of a lot of people who've listened to the programme here now, very concerned, Eoghan, particularly young mums who want to bring children away on their first holiday. And like, children of two, getting a first passport, you explained, getting a first passport for a child was always a nightmare. It's even more of a nightmare now.
It's a very important legal document. I mean, passports, the Irish passport is one of the most valuable in the world. I think it's the third most valuable passport in the world. We get into more countries visa-free than the British do, for instance, or almost any other country. So, getting a passport isn't just a matter of filling a form and turning up in the office and getting it. So there's all sorts of legal implications for it. And if we start taking any shortcut with that, our reputation, which is squeaky clean around the world, people love the Irish passport. The face lights up, they smile when they see it. Go crossing borders.
Very safe document. Yeah,
it's a very safe document. You go across borders in Africa where other European countries with a colonial past have all sorts of restrictions put on them. Once you say Ireland, so it's really important we keep that reputation. So they can't drop the standard. The problem is not caused by the restrictions.
But if you look at the way that when we had to run a very complex operation like setting up a vaccine program, a lot of stuff was outsourced and we got the army involved in all of that. Like, could that be done to ease the backlog?
Oh, of course, you can outsource all aspects of the process, but at some stage a human being has to intervene with the legal knowledge to say this is an authentic application. And this valuable document has been given out to somebody who is not going to abuse it. Yeah. And you might say, okay, children aren't going to be criminals or drug dealers, but the process still, the legal process that's in place is in there for a very good reason, and it's been very good for the reputation of Ireland internationally and the reputation of our passport internationally.
So I'm thinking in terms of young parents with two children who want to go on their first trip to, for argument's sake, Santa Ponsa in the summertime, and they book their flights and they book their accommodation, but they need to get passports for the children to make sure that it goes through as quickly as it can. What should they do? How important is it to have everything ready and double checked?
There's no shortcut. It's jump early. It's the only solution. Now, there is something, as I said, some people were waiting for PPS numbers for a newborn baby. And it's not just Santa Ponsa, it's also the reconnection of grandmothers and parents.
I'm just using that as a very simple example.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm a fan of Santa Ponsa. But anyway, the PPS number isn't required. You don't need to wait for the PPS number. But there's still a time lag and still a delay. And the big frustration, as you alluded to in your intro, is the randomness of it. People waiting 3 months and somebody else waiting 2 days. And there is another problem which they might be able to address, that once you're in the system, you cannot apply for an emergency appointment. That was put in, I think, to clear an emergency for emergencies. But quite clearly, this is an unusual situation. And if that's something that Simon Coveney could do at the stroke of a pen, is say, okay, if you're in the system, you can still apply for an emergency appointment. I think most people accept there's going to be a backlog, there's going to be a rush, there's going to be a sort of a real spike in passport applications. But when there are bureaucratic impositions put in or hurdles put into on top of the problem, that's when people get really frustrated. As well as you said, the randomness of the system.
Yeah. I asked Pat Dawson this the other day, and he wasn't sure. Maybe you know.
I'll try anyway. Yeah. Sure.
Is there an actual printing press in the Cork office?
The printing of the passport, as far as I know, is done by one of these major secure places near Dublin. I don't think there is a printing press in Cork. The printing process would be used by sports ticket people, all of those sorts of things. Everywhere where there's QR codes and barcodes and identity checks, it's an involved process, and there aren't that many in the country.
Because one would think that, particularly for the south of Ireland, it would be so much easier if we could process Munster passports, for example, and get them all printed in Cork. To be so much easier.
You have something to run with there. I'm not absolutely certain that there isn't one, but I would think it's highly unlikely.
I used to think there was one. I remember covering it at one point when the passport office opened down there, but I don't know for certain. Here's a simple one. I'm applying for my youngest son. It's a nightmare. Why don't they assign a PPS number at birth? Some countries...
You don't need it. You don't need it.
You don't need it for the passport.
You do not need to wait for the PPS number. That's really, really important. And that's one of the things that's happened.
Okay.
Two things, and I'll repeat them. PPS number not required to apply for the newborn baby. And second is the support documentation. They'll take a passport of the photocopy of the parent's passport, because parents' passports will be caught up in the system as well as the child's.
Yeah. It copper fastens the identification process, though. This is the complaint that people are making. Also, even if you do a child's passport online, you must still print off the form to bring it to the Garda station to be signed.
Yes. Apparently,
Garda stations don't have passport forms anymore.
I would be surprised at that. It's not. It's probably before COVID. I was last in the Garda station picking up a passport form, but it could be the case that they've stopped doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not up to speed on that.
Maybe we could place a call to Anglo Street Station, and then maybe they tell us in the public office whether they have a passport expiring in July, travelling to Spain in June. Are we in trouble?
No, Spain is okay. There are countries that you need 6 months before the expiry of the passport. A good, notable holiday example would be Turkey. But there is, if you check on the DFA website through the different countries that have different policies, but Spain is not one of them. If your passport is valid on your return, the date of your return flight, you're fine.
Okay. Even if it were to expire within a few days of your return flight, you are okay.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the 6 months. There's a sort of a 6 month period that some countries require, but Spain is not one of them.
But I think the very clear advice, Eoghan, from yourself and indeed from Pat
Jump early.
Go now, get yours, and make sure you have all of your ducks in a row before you do anything.
Yeah, it's not a simple process. One of the big things is they allowed, and it was a huge move at the time, they allowed you to upload your own photograph, taken at home. Now, the biggest cause for rejection of passport applications is that photograph. It's complicated. We all get the thing, you don't smile, and your head has to fit into the little egg on the paper. But a lot of them are rejected.
Yeah. Is there an app? Is there an app that you can put on your phone to actually
there are
guide
loads
you?
of people. There are loads of people telling you they'll do it for money, but there's also on the DFA website a list of official photographers that they work with. And the official photographer I've come across cases where the official photograph has been rejected as well, because these things happen. But working with the official photographer will make sure it will get you almost guaranteed that it will be accepted.
Okay, all right, Eoghan. Thanks very much.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers. The advice: go early. If you think there's any doubt about a passport. Go early. If you have a youngster, Smalley, that you want to take on their first holiday and it's July or it's August, go now. Get the stuff together now. Get everything together now and get the paperwork in, because it is, even when everything is together, it's all delayed. Here's one we got in. We got this. This is quite long, so I'll read it. And it's a situation that you'd hate to find somebody in. I'd love if you could highlight the issue of people out of the country trying to get passports. My brother just needs a letter so he can go to the Irish Embassy in London to get a passport. Bit of background. My brother came to stay with me a few years back in England after our mother died. He was finding things tough at the time. He decided to stay with us and his stuff expired. So we now have to do the application from scratch. Sent everything in July last and got an email to say he needed picture ID. That too wasn't in date, but he can't get it without a passport. He can't travel home to get a new driving licence because he has no passport or ID. We sent off loads more stuff they wanted in October and the application hasn't moved since. We can't go to the Irish Embassy in London because we need a letter. We seem to be stuck in a situation of no passport without ID or no ID without passport. I'd be grateful if anyone who's been in this situation can guide us with what to do.
Cork's 96 FM.